Welcome to this workshop on when overfunctioning and perfectionism became identity. My name is Katrina Horn and I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm going to talk about adaptation strategies because maybe you think that your adaptation strategies are really part of your personality. But these personal traits, what we call personality, might just be adaptation strategies that at some point became what you started to identify with as being safe, as being accepted, as being valuable, or as being in control. And what I'm talking about are things like people pleasing, it's perfectionism, it's overfunctioning, it is hyper independence, it's being that strong one. And so when we have internalized those patterns, those programs, when we have internalized them, we could sort of start confusing them with identity. And the problem here is that if we are just running a program that might have served us in the past, because I mean, you're here today, so somehow it did serve you, but maybe that is starting to feel very heavy. Maybe you're starting to feel the pressure. Maybe you can sense that you really want to be more yourself, like more authentic, what I like to think of as genuine, meaning that we are aware of the programs that we might be running. So once we have created awareness around them, we've taken them from being subconscious patterns into our consciousness. Now we can get to change them. And once we are out there living our lives and they have become subconscious or unconscious patterns again, it's just who we've become, right? But we've become so consciously. Let's dive into identity. I talk a lot about identity because when we grow up, we are conditioned. I don't think you want to argue with me on that. But what we believe to be personality is perhaps just learnt behavior, because when we are little, we are so influenced by what people tell us, what people show us, what our environment sort of reflects back to us. And we accept whatever is reflected back. And then we start creating meaning from it. And we make it mean things that could be true. And we make it mean that could perhaps be less true. But what is for certain is once we become adults, we can now take our power back. We can now become aware of the meanings we've made, of what we have unconsciously accepted, and we can start rummaging through it, and we can actually design what we want to develop and what we want to keep and what we want to scrap. So that's what we're diving into today. I'm going to take you through some examples. I'm going to share some of my very personal story with it, because goodness knows, I used to be a people pleaser. I call myself a professional people pleaser because I used to be on stage. I certainly was a perfectionist. I certainly developed hyper independence. I certainly was over functioning, and if you don't know what that is, I will explain it. And I definitely identify as being the strong one. And you might be thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with that, and there might be nothing wrong with any of this. It really depends on what we make it mean and how it plays out in life. So I said at the beginning that these adaptation strategies became what you thought of as your personality. So you could have thought of yourself as quiet, you could have thought of yourself as clumsy, as kind, all of these things. And of course, you could be all of that. But where is it really originating is what I want to dive into. At the end of the workshop, I'll be sharing some journaling questions for you. And it would be really good if, of course, you can start thinking about them, but if you really sat down and went through them. And what I like to do with my clients is that we go through them 3 times, say, because every time we can go a little bit deeper. And why do we want to go deeper? It's because, well, we can, of course, learn how to set boundaries. I mean, coaching is all about learning these strategies. But really, if we can get to the root cause of why it is we are not setting boundaries and what it looks like in our lives and where it's coming from, the emotions and the thoughts and identities and beliefs that is running all of that. Once we can get in there and we can start operating changes there, then it just automatically spills out into our lives and makes all the changes that we've been trying to make with a few strategies. So that's why I want you to be really, really self-aware. And I think, well, for transformative coaching, at any rate, that is really what it's about. It's about becoming so self-aware that you can actually spot what's going on in real time. And once you can spot what goes on in real time, you can actually make choices in real time. You can choose how you want to react, right? We can react unconsciously or we can react consciously. It doesn't mean we have to be sort of supervising ourselves. We don't have to be monitoring ourselves, but we can be aware. When we look at people pleasing, you might think, oh, I'm just being kind. I'm being helpful. I'm very aware what people think. So I'm very sensitive, right? What are we actually making the people pleasing mean? What we want to notice is that, yes, people pleasers can be kind, they can be helpful, no problem there. But can we allow ourselves to be kind and helpful without having to people please? And if so, what does it look like? So with perfectionism, maybe you call that I'm very detail oriented. I've got high standards. I'm conscientious. But how can you bring that out? I used to be a perfectionist. So I know a lot about perfectionism. I used to be a classical musician. And goodness knows that that was in a very highly competitive environment. So it was very much about living up to a standard that was perfection. It was very much about making sure you did everything right. And it was very much about comparing your performance, your interpretation, comparing it to other interpretations. And particularly when I got to France, it was about being very faithful to the original intentions of the composer. That really brought out all the perfectionism that I had bought into in my life, and it just developed it to a point where it became unbearable. So hyper independence, what is that even? Being hyper independent, it's when you think it's all up to you. It's when you think there is no help to be had. You might think of it as being independent, being self-sufficient, but how can you be all of that without being hyper independent? Because the problem with hyper independence is that it leads to you feeling lonely, like you feel alone. Over functioning is when you start being responsible for the work of your colleagues, right? It's when you take on all of those tasks that need to get done, but you feel might not get done unless you do it. So that's where we want to come in, because I'm sure you can sense that all of this creates a lot of pressure. And the same with being the strong one. It's being dependable. Maybe you think of it as being a born leader, being the strong one, but it can be taken to extremes. But I think as we're getting older, we really get more and more conscious of wanting life to feel good, don't we? I don't know about you, but I'm very conscious about creating the life that feels good to me. So I can't be over here people pleasing and being the strong one and doing a lot of things that don't feel good. I'm no longer willing to accept it. And that might be your case. So let's dive into people pleasing. When you people please, you might be holding yourself back from saying what you really think, because for you, the important part is to be accepted, to be liked. So you must be monitoring all the time whether what you are about to say is actually acceptable and whether people are going to like it. Because if you're being really honest, you really don't control whether people like you, do you? I mean, of course, if you're being obnoxious, there are a lot of chances that they won't like you, but really, You can't control what anybody thinks of you. And if you look at it that way, don't you think that people are much more likely to like you when you are being you? I had a conversation with a client about this because she realized that being a people pleaser and always trying to say the right thing and to get along and be agreeable, that she was being extremely bland. Bland was the word she used. And I feel from myself that being a people pleaser, it was, of course, I was very conscious of being liked, but it was really like, even if people liked me, I would sit back and think, do they like me for who I am or for what I'm displaying? Because I'm not being myself. So who is it that they like? So it just becomes very complicated. And wouldn't it feel much better if you could be yourself and letting go of the desire to control what other people think? Then what? Then what? Would that be okay? So we're sort of taking it apart. And if you're really noticing that, well, I want to be kind, I want to be helpful, I want people to know that I'm willing to help and all of that, well, let's just pick it apart. What do you identify this urge to please with? What is it you want people to think about you? And what is it really you want to know about yourself? If it is being kind, well, what are other ways in which you can be kind? So I've got the belief that me being myself, me being really aware of how I feel, me only saying yes when I mean yes, is always to the best of everybody concerned. Nobody is better served by me doing something that I don't want to do, but doing it anyway, than simply saying no. Because nobody wants me to build up resentment. Nobody wants me to do something I don't want to do. That can never be good. I said I was a perfectionist, and goodness knows that was true because I felt I had to live up to perfection. And that was just never possible. And I think we short sell ourselves when we want that perfection because at some point we recognize that, oh, I won't be able to reach perfection. So we let ourselves off the hook. We stop doing our best because we can see, oh, I won't be able to do it perfectly. Let me just stop attempting. Let me just stop exerting myself because I shall be so disappointed. And if I really push myself, really do my best, really stay committed, stay on track, I get to the point where I see that even though I have done my best, it's still not perfect. Then what? What does that tell me about myself? Wouldn't I prefer to be able to tell myself, oh, I didn't try. I didn't really try. Oh, I didn't have enough time. I couldn't get it all done because I didn't have enough time. Right? Or so-and-so slipped up and he didn't give me the information, so now I can't, and blah, blah, blah. That can feel better to have a sort of excuse than to look at yourself and then say, I did my best and I still don't feel it's good enough. That is really devastating. So let's look at it in a different way. Let's look at perfectionism or perfection as relative. So I like to think about, well, what is my best under the circumstances? What is my best? So it's no longer perfection, it's my best. I'm aiming for my best, but when I'm defining my best, I'm taking circumstances into account. So the advantage here is if somebody doesn't deliver and I can't do the full work, or if I'm short of time, or if something happens, well, I can still define what is my best under the circumstances. And when I get to, oh, this is my best, and then I actually perform at my best, well, then I can feel satisfied. But as long as I've got an ideal that is unattainable, I will never get to the point where I can be satisfied or proud or feel accomplished. That is outside my reach. So can I invite you to think about this? What if instead of perfection, you started being much more aware of, well, what is actually my best under the circumstances? And with my clients, we have an exercise with 3 columns. So we've got one column that says unacceptable. And we can have another column called either my best or what I would really like. And the column in the middle is acceptable. And then we get to define all these versions. In other words, we make some conscious choices. So let's say you are doing a presentation at work. You can start thinking about, well, how would I really like it to be? What is my best in this, under these circumstances? Maybe you've got 3 weeks to prepare, whatever. You define what your best would look like precisely. And then you start thinking about, oh, if I want this, what will I need to do ahead of time? How much time will I need? What will I need to prepare? And blah, blah, blah. So you put everything in place so that you can get to your best under the circumstances. You put into the unacceptable what you really wouldn't like to experience. And that could be something like showing up with no notes, feeling stressed out, not having had the time to prepare, all of that. You make that unacceptable. And then in the middle, you give yourself some slack and you say, well, actually, even though my slides aren't perfect, it is acceptable if they are just okay or whatever, right? You really get clear on the definition of this. And then you let go of the concept that there is a perfect version that everybody is going to enjoy, that will validate you, and that will do something for you in any way. We don't really need that. We simply need to be satisfied or happy or proud of ourselves. That's it. There is no ultimate way that you have to do things. So I know that for myself, I used to be very upset when, again, as a concert harpist, I didn't prepare enough for a concert. So my enough, I hadn't defined it. I didn't know what enough was. So there was no enough. If I hadn't worked myself to the bone every day, it wasn't enough. I had the underlying belief that I had to do more than other people to be at their level. I had to work harder. I had to do more. Like, I had never looked at it. So what do you think my experience was of a concert? It was that I wasn't quite up to scratch. And that impression just came through lack of awareness. Not lack of practice, not lack of preparation, but simply lack of awareness. I had so many unexamined beliefs, so many unexamined patterns. It was just like setting myself up for failure every time. So what I wanted to talk about today, because I never really talked about this, is this hyper independence. And what is that even? What is it? It's when you feel that you are alone in your game. You're completely alone. You have to make it happen. It's up to you. And I wanted to tell a story about that because it really illustrates it very perfectly, how we integrate it. And maybe you can relate to some of it. Not that in coaching, you don't need to know why something is. You can just notice it and then change it. And then what happens is once we have noticed it, we have changed it, then we can see, oh, this is how it started. But if you are new to personal development, if you're new to working on yourself or designing your life or whatever you want to call it, just know that when you start with a question of why, you might stay stuck for a long time, because if you knew why, you wouldn't have the problem. So it's much more useful to just start noticing how it's playing out. So let me tell you the story of when I was a little girl. My mum was very determined to have us grow up as very independent girls, able to take care of ourselves, and live life on our terms, which was a fabulous idea. So when I was very little, she said, "Oh, you must book an appointment with the dentist." And I thought, oh goodness, I don't like being grown up. You have to go and book appointments with the dentist. So she said, you must look up the dentist number in the phone book. And the phone book was like a pretty big deal for me. It was very heavy. And so I thought, okay, I didn't know how to, but I opened the pages and I thought, oh, dentist. Oh, dentist. It starts with a D. Well, it didn't, because I grew up in Denmark, and it started with a T, because in Danish, a dentist is a tooth doctor. So I thought, well, where are the T's in this phone book? I can't find the T's. How do you know where the T is? Because I hadn't learned the alphabet in order. Like I'd learned the letters. I think I must have been very young, like 7 or 8. So I was just sort of randomly looking to see if I could find a T. And I remember feeling really like, why don't they teach me these things? I can't be expected to do this. There's missing information here, how you go through things. I remember that distinctly. And fortunately, my mum came and told me, well, here's the T. It's right after the S. Didn't you know that? And I thought, well, no, I didn't. So anyway, that was just one example of me feeling really alone with a problem and not having the support I needed to solve the problem. And please don't think ill of my mum. She was acting like with a good intention, right? She had a lot of problems of her own. So yeah, we don't need to condemn her or think anything about her. But she thought that was really a good thing. She also thought it was a good thing that I buy my own clothes. And I remember going out to buy clothes, and I know I was 9. I was buying clothes. I went into this shop and I said, oh, well, I tried on the clothes, went to the counter, and they said, does your mum know that you're here? I said, well, she knows that I'm out clothes shopping, but I don't know if she knows that I'm in this shop. I mean, I don't know. She said, oh, I just want to phone her to make sure you're allowed to spend this money. I thought, that is absurd. I'll phone my mum. So they phoned my mum, and my mum said, yes, you can buy those clothes. And so I did. And it was just sort of reflected back to me that there was something off. So I was I'd integrated that everything was up to me, like, go and do it, Katrina. If you want something, you have to go and get it. So thinking, oh, that was odd. But you know how you do when you're little, you find fault with yourself. And I thought, oh, I mustn't have been looking expert enough, or I mustn't have been adult enough, or I mustn't have been whatever enough. I didn't find fault with them. I found fault with myself. Maybe that rings a bell for you too. But just to let you know that by the time I emigrated to the UK, I had completely internalized this idea that it was up to me. So I myself contacted the music college in London, where I wanted to audition in probably horrible English, like schoolgirl English. I contacted them, got information, set up an audition, all of that on my own. My parents never once inquired. And I thought that was normal. But imagine you sending your child to another country and not even checking in to see this school, what is this school like? And the reason I know that they never checked out anything, even behind my back, was that coming from Denmark, I thought that education was free. But in London, like, music college wasn't free. It was £20,000 per year. And I was doing a master's degree, so that was £80,000. I didn't know that. So when I auditioned and they said, yes, you're accepted and you've got a scholarship, I thought, okay, Don't know what that means. Maybe it's the inscription fees, like of £150 or something. So I said, great, thank you. And it turned out that it was my tuition fees for 4 years to a master's degree. And my parents hadn't inquired to find out whether there would be any fees or anything. And I didn't know either. And it was just like, wow, we were so naive. But it served me well, right? Because had I known, oh, this will cost £80,000, I would never even have attempted it. So I think sometimes lack of information can be a really good thing. But just when you look at my parents, you would think, wow, okay. There was no internet at the time, but, picking up the phone would have been possible. Sending a letter would have been possible. But just to say that I had completely internalized this idea that I was independent. I could count on nobody. If I wanted something to happen, I had to make it happen. Have you experienced something similar? And are you willing now to look at it in the shape of, am I actually ever asking for help? Because what happens is when we believe everything is up to us, we go out into the world and we meet people who believe the same, that everything is up to us, not up to them, but up to us. Like we find that reflected in everything. So we actually hook up with people who don't want to particularly help us or support us or anything, right? We end up with confirming our assumptions that I'm an independent island, I must go through life independently. And that's the kind of relationships we then attract, because we're always looking to confirm our beliefs. So people who don't believe that they have to go through life doing everything themselves, well, if they attract somebody who thinks that everything is up to them and they're not going to support them, they're just not going to accept it, right? But for us, for the hyper-independent women, well, we think, of course, they're not doing anything for me, they're not supporting me, they're not helping me. Of course, it's up to me. So we accept things that we might not really want to accept had we become conscious of it. Does that make sense? And so I've got this sentence, it's not because I can, but I have to. It's not because I can help this person out, but I have to. It's not because I can do all of this on my own, that I have to. So I would really like for you to take that to heart. If you are over-functioning, please adopt this. Always check in with yourself. I can do it. I know I can do it, but do I really want to? Do I really want to? And with another client, it was really fun because she noticed just this week, I think it was even yesterday, she said, oh, I've become aware that having fun actually matters. Isn't that a lovely awareness? Having fun matters. When you're thinking that, wow, you are well out of functioning, over-functioning, aren't you? I mean, we don't want to go to the other extreme where we are never taking on anything, we are never attempting to do things. It's just like, let's look at where we're coming from. Let's simply say, okay, life is meant to be fun. When I believe that I have to do things on my own and everything is up to me, it feels like a lot of pressure. And I can actually feel that it doesn't feel good. So I believe that anything that doesn't feel good, I have to examine it. I have to start becoming aware of, what am I believing? What am I believing that makes this not feel good? What is it here that I'm assuming? What is my assumption around this? My assumption is I have to do this on my own, or it won't get done. If I don't do this on my own, this will never happen. What is the assumption behind that? And then once I've defined, well, what is the underlying belief? Oh, I can look at the belief and then I can start to question it. is it really true that I have to do everything on my own? And is it really true that I have to take on other people's responsibilities? Is that really true? And we're going into that. I'm going to give you a few examples, but really start opening your mind to, can that really be true? What if it's not true? What if something else is equally true? I really like asking myself that question too. So being the strong one can be very useful. I just think that when we identify with being the strong one, it sort of shuts the door on being not the strong one. And I'm not talking about being completely feeble and weak. And, there's something in between being always the strong one and being completely a wimp. There's everything in between. So is it true that I can be brave, courageous, competent, a lot of things without being the strong one? Can I allow other people to step in and be the strong ones without making it mean anything about me? So what does it mean being the strong one? It means that I can get things done. But again, it's not because I can that I must. Being the strong one is like doing something and noticing I'm not really enjoying it. But hey, it's not breaking me, so let me carry on. I can take it. Bring it on. I can take it. Yeah, give me more. So all of these, I don't want to call them coping mechanisms. It's more like adaptation strategies. They have served us at one point because they got us up to here. But let's just re-examine them and say, okay, well, perhaps sometimes I can step up and I can choose to be the strong one, but let's not ever have that be something I do automatically. Do you see? Well, then these behaviors become a choice. And I think choice feels so much better. I can sometimes take charge and I can sometimes step down. That in no way defines me because I know that I can be the strong one when I want to, but sometimes I don't want to. And that is okay. So that's what I want us to dive into here with my journaling questions and my few examples. So let me try and share my screen. So you can take a screenshot of this if you wish. And if you're watching the replay, you can ask also for the PDF, or if you're on my email list, I'll be sending out the PDF. So what we're doing when we're journaling is we are simply creating awareness. So it's the first step to change. It's not the whole change. It is the first step. We want to bring what was unconscious into our consciousness so that we can see it. Then we can decide what we want to do with it, knowing that we can change anything. And then we can then go out and practice this change till it becomes who we are, till it becomes second nature. So that's what we're doing with journaling. And I like journaling because when we are writing things down, be it on the computer or wherever, it's not that there's something magical about writing things down. It's simply that we have to focus because we can't be writing one thing down while we're thinking of another one. So it just creates a distraction-free environment to explore. Because, sometimes you're sitting on the bus or in the shower and boom, you will have a new idea, right? Because you're not distracted by anything. So new ideas can come in. If you're always busy listening to podcasts, reading books or doing workshops and never actually doing the actual work, which is in the stillness, diving in to these very, very intimate and personal things, well, then the change is not really happening because we don't need more information, right? It might be very pleasant to hear whatever I'm saying has already been said by a million other people. But what I'm saying, I might be saying it in a different way, in a way where you can hear it, or it might be just the inspiration you need to start diving in deeper. But the work isn't done here. The work isn't done with the information. It's what you do with the information. It's how you take it further. So how are you creating this situation? Probably by accepting something that is unacceptable. How are you creating this situation? Think about people pleasing. How are you creating it? How are you participating in it? And that's why next question. It is about, if you stopped doing it, if you stopped participating in the situation you created, what would the consequences be? And I think we always have to be very aware of the possible consequences, because we have to be able to live with the outcome. We don't want to be saying something we will end up regretting. We don't want to be leaving people we will end up regretting leaving and all of that. We really want to take a moment and get really clear on what are the consequences. So you can tell yourself this: to change, I'm choosing a moment of discomfort because it doesn't feel comfortable to be yourself when you're not used to it. It doesn't feel comfortable to let go of the idea of perfection and adopt a new image of what your best is. That could feel really, really uncomfortable. But you are choosing a moment, a short time in your life of discomfort over a lifetime of resentment, of struggle, of pressure, of having to put up with all of that. And then you can ask why. And the sense is really, why is it worth it? Why is it worth it? Why is it worth me getting uncomfortable with? Why is that? Well, what is on the other side? Start thinking about, well, if I could stop my people-pleasing, hyper-independence, whatever, if I could just stop it, why is that preferable? Why actually would I want to do that? So I would love for you to journal this out. And first of all, I'd love for you to create awareness around what is your adaptation strategy. And you might have many. As I mentioned, I've had all 5 of the ones we've been talking about. I've had them all. But I had to start somewhere, didn't I? And you can start with the one that feels the most oppressing, like the one that creates the most pressure. Dive in somewhere, name it, and you can describe what it looks like in your life. So with people pleasing, you could go into, when I meet somebody, I feel an overwhelming desire to perform. I feel I have to be funny if the person is looking for funny. I feel I have to be deep if the person is looking for deep. I'm always trying to spot what the person wants. I'm always monitoring myself. I'm always aware, blah, blah, blah. So you start describing it for yourself. So you really get a very good image of what it looks like. And what do you make it mean about yourself? Are you making it mean that if I just stopped doing it, I would be unacceptable? If we stay with the people pleasing, do you make it mean that you're unacceptable unless you people please? Do you make it mean that you're unacceptable unless you hide something? What do you make it mean? And then move on to, what are other ways in which you can demonstrate these qualities to yourself and to others? So in this case, when you're aware of your qualities and you are displaying them or demonstrating them in different ways, you're no longer adapting, like you're no longer using that strategy. You're simply expressing yourself. So in my example of kindness, you can still be kind without people pleasing. Like, I think it's actually kinder sometimes to say no. And actually, it's much kinder to be honest with people, I find. It's much kinder to say no when you mean no. It's not actually very kind to play a comedy or pretend. Oh, yes, I'd love to do that for you. And feeling the resentment. Right. So what are other ways in which you can demonstrate these qualities? If you feel you're kind, well, how can you show your kindness in different ways? You can simply decide that you're a kind person and it will naturally bubble out. It will display itself. It will demonstrate itself in many, many ways. And you can just start noticing them. Oh, I'm out in life and now I'm helping an elderly lady carry her shopping to her car. Now, that is kind. So now you're out in the world scanning for you to have your qualities reflected back to you. And that feels really good. So you can fill yourself up like that. Oh, actually, I am kind, not through pleasing people. I'm actually kind. It's actually who I am. I am kind. And you can have that confirmed to you in whatever circumstance you want. So when I'm willing to get uncomfortable and no longer participate in this, how will my life be different? What's the pressure that will be off? Let's use another example. Let's say that you overfunction, and so you take on work in your workplace that is not really yours, but you're thinking, it's already whatever day. If it doesn't get done by Friday, it means I will have to work over the weekend. So let me just take on what is not mine to take on. Let me move in here and take on more responsibility than is mine so that it gets done. Now, it could be really, really very uncomfortable to say, no, I am aware that my team is not on track to have this done by Friday, but I've done my part. I've done my part. It won't be done on Friday. And I'm not working over the weekend. So whatever will happen, will happen. And I've noticed for myself that often I'm just preventing uncomfortable things. Like, it's not really like life or death situations. It's just like, oh, I don't want to be uncomfortable on Monday morning when I'm being told off or people are dissatisfied with me for not having completed. So what becomes possible when you start questioning your adaptation strategies? What is no longer necessary? And you can move into what you're thinking. Instead of thinking that I must please, if not, I won't be accepted, I'll think, I'm much more likely to be liked when I'm being myself. I can think, if people don't like me, they're free not to like me, all of that. And I'm actually at the moment experiencing that in a very big way for myself. So I'm really, really practicing and taking my own medicine because some people are very displeased with me at the moment. And looking at it, I don't regret anything. I acted according to my principles, according to my values. I really was true to my values. And now they're displeased with me in a big way. And that displeasure has consequences out in real life. And I can't say I'm suffering under the consequences because I'm not, because I found different solutions, right? But it feels so good, even if some people are not pleased with me, that, oh, actually, I stood up for myself. These are my beliefs, these are my principles, these are my values. And if people don't agree with that, they can't see it, they don't understand it, over to them. I'm willing to have a conversation, but if they're not, over to them. I'm willing to be disliked. Big one, right? I'm willing to be disliked because the people who don't like me, they're not really my kind of people, right? We don't really see things the same way. So no big deal. Also ask yourself, how do you want to feel? And in my example that I just mentioned, I want to feel in integrity. So, okay, if I'm always checking in with my integrity, making sure that, yes, this is really who I am, this is what I stand for, it feels liberating. It feels so good. So that is always something you can come back to. How do I want to feel? And as I said at the beginning or in the middle, I don't know, it's not like you've got some information now, you have some examples from my life. It's really now, what do I do with it? How do I take this further? Do I really journal this out? Do I really take a look at it? And if you want my help, please know that I'd be thrilled to help you. I'd be thrilled to spend an hour with you where we go into this, and I'd be thrilled to show you what coaching can do for you. So please feel free to take me up on that offer. It's my pleasure. You are not wasting my time, and it will be an enjoyable experience for everybody concerned. But please take it further. You need to be still in your mind. You need to be focused, so distraction free, no phone checking, no email checking, no anything checking, just being with yourself. And the more you are with yourself, the more of a relationship you start having with yourself. And I think the more of a relationship you have with yourself, the more you start seeing yourself for who you really are. All change starts with self-awareness, and that's what we do in coaching. So coaching is not telling you what to do. Like, there are no fast solutions in real coaching. It's like a coach helps you to see what the thoughts that are behind your behavior, and then we can change those thoughts. And what feels good about that is once you have done the change, once you're on the other side of transformation, then you can see the why. So any change will feel uncomfortable. Some people say, oh, I'm afraid, I feel fear. Feeling the fear is simply a sign that you're changing and that your old self is sort of pulling you back. It's saying, no, don't go there. Don't go and stop people pleasing. Don't go and be yourself. That feels really, really frightening. Remember, we're doing this people pleasing over here. And that's what the fear is about. It only exists in your mind. There is nothing fearful. There are no lions out there to get you. You are completely safe. Even when people don't like you,